People will not stop being problematic. Why? Read your Bible, be unproblematic, drink your tea, you know? After reading a bit more of this article that I'm in, I'm just stuck in permanent just... There is a generation that is being raised now with a lot more triggers, but with a lot more curiosity as well. I think there's certain things that this generation is not willing to receive the answer of "you'll find out when you're older," or "this is for the adults." They want to know, and they will find out from having internet access to shows like this that they'll be able to easily access. I think there's definitely a generation being raised up, or coming up, that really has an inquisitive mind, and I think that we should be able to know how to deal with that better instead of just shutting it down. Not change how they were born. They didn't decide that, and I would still decide to be black anyway, but I just think it's quite strange, and I'm not too keen on the program. I have complained to Ofcom, and you can complain to Ofcom if you haven't already. It's received around 1,000 complaints since the show aired. I don't want to butcher his name. I'll try. If I don't put his name on the screen, just listen to me just butcher it. Have you heard what's going on in culture? If not, let's get into it. Whew, let's get going. Oh, I feel so raw in these videos. I really love them. God is good, amen. Okay, hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is AkuaB, and here on this channel I cover all things faith, culture and encouragement. In today's video I'm going to be getting into another episode of In Culture. This is going to be episode 3. So if you haven't caught the previous episodes, feel free to go back and watch them. There was some juicy stuff on Asbury Revival, Black China, those kind of topics, all the things going on in culture and more. So feel free to go watch those if you haven't already. And without further ado, let's get into today's episode. We've got so much to talk about. So welcome back everybody. It has just been Easter, and I'm just off at Easter high. We've just had the Easter break. If you're a student, we've just had Easter holidays. If you're a teacher out there, and for the rest of you, I hope that you got some time off over Easter, especially with bank holidays and things like that. It's been a really great holiday. It's just been really restful for me, and yeah, just really nice time to spend time with family and just relax. So it's been really nice, and I'm just really glad to get back to filming. And these videos, I always feel really relaxed, as I was saying in the intro. I just feel really I just feel really relaxed when I do these In Culture episodes. I just love chatting about what is going on in culture, all of these different things. I think it's quite difficult, especially when you try to niche yourself on YouTube, to actually be able to touch on these different areas. So I'm just using this time as my branch out space, my branch out time, and just really finding what sticks, just hitting things against the wall, seeing what sticks, seeing what you guys enjoy. So feel free to keep interacting with me, comment what you're enjoying, what you're not enjoying so much, feel free. I don't mind the criticism. And yeah, as long as it's constructive, I love to hear what you guys are enjoying. My camera is sorted. If you guys didn't realize from the last video, we've no longer got a clicky camera. We've got a stabilizer on the camera now, we've got a new lens. So I'm really excited about that. Today, let me just give you a brief overview of what we're going to get into before I ramble too much. So there's been a lot of things that have been happening in the news lately. We've had different things from, there's a show on TV that is causing a lot of drama. If you've not heard about it already, you're going to hear about it today. We've had some news with the Dalai Lama and just a bit of controversy with something that has happened with him. We've had stuff about the Labour Party in the UK. People say don't get too political, but it's what's going on in the world. And then we've had something quite tragic with a child that has happened over in America, I believe, which is quite sad as well. So we're just going to get into all of these different things, and yeah, that is what we're going to get into today, just a bit of an overview. So first of all, Easter holidays. What's been going on? Easter was pretty chill for me. Like I said, been in Manchester. I'm in Manchester right now. I won't be for very long, but here I am today. It's been really fun. It's been really nice to just be with family and not really think about much. That's been really good. I think you just need periods where your brain just switches off and you can just relax and maybe read a book or two. I've definitely done that over this Easter holiday. I read a little book called Risk is Right by John Piper. That was just a nice quick afternoon read. It's like maybe like 50 pages or something like that. And I'm partway through a book called God's Smuggler. It's about a man who was smuggling Bibles across Europe, and yeah, that was all going on around the time just after the Second World War. So with the whole thing of, you know, yeah, just a lot going on in Europe at that time. And yeah, it's been a really interesting read. It's been quite jarring at points. I think when you read books from different people's perspectives and it's not just fiction and it's, you know, real life stuff, it can get quite gritty and you're just a bit shocked and you're left just a bit like, oh goodness, like this is someone's life. So that is what's been happening recently. That is what I've been getting into. And yeah, I just think the wisdom that I've received recently is just to go for things, even if you might think, oh, it's going to embarrass me, or like, you know, I've got so much to lose. Like, just go for it. You know, you have one life, and not in the way that you use it recklessly, but in the way that you use it wisely. One of my favorite scriptures is, Lord, teach us to number our days so that we may apply wisdom unto our hearts. And I think that's just such a profound passage, because it just speaks to the fragility and the vapor that is human life, but also really empowers us to make good decisions, to make good steps forward, and not to just be, you know, running side to side or trying to run backwards. Like, go forward with intention, with purpose, with drive, with passion, and actually do something productive with your life. So that is just a really big encouragement that I've been having recently, something that God has really been teaching me and letting me lean into. And I think just leaving behind any any embarrassment or shame or anything like that that could really just like stunt you is just something that God has really been helping me with recently. So yeah, that's just a bit of a random thought. Some books I've been reading recently. I'm not sure who God's Smuggler is by. I'd have to I think it's by David something, but I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look at the book. But yeah, really good read so far. And yeah, if you guys are reading anything, feel free to let me know down below. I'd love to know what you guys are getting into, what your church has been preaching recently, anything that God is teaching you. Feel free to share that down below. Maybe share some encouragement and wisdom with others, and they'll be encouraged also. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into the topics for today. I think the first one that I'm gonna get into is the just notorious show by this point called Naked Education. And I had to be careful there, because this show is actually in my mind under a different title. Sometimes it gets just switched, like a little Freudian slip. There's a show on TV also on Channel 4 called Naked Attraction. And this Naked Attraction is basically where a group of adults, it's basically a dating show. I've not watched it, but it's a dating show where adults will reveal themselves to each other in explicit detail, their whole body naked, and they'll base that immediate visual display, they'll base their attraction off of that. So that is what that show is, and this show is actually by the same person who produced that show, who made that show, has also done Naked Education. So that's kind of filtered down into this show as well. And this show is actually about the same kind of concept of nakedness, but in a different way. So they've spun it so that it's actually providing education for children. So it's about 14 to 16-year-olds who are kind of like a little panel, like they've got school desks and things like that, and they learn about human bodies, adult human bodies. And I think it's so interesting that the same person that made Naked Attraction has made a Naked Education. I don't know, you know, what's going on there. You'd really have to speak to this person and, you know, see what their intents are behind this show. And they've got different health professionals with them. One of them being the Dr. Alex, I'm pretty sure, from Love Island a few seasons ago. And he's, you know, a doctor, and he's on this show and just really working with people, working with children to be able to create a more body positive generation that really looks at the raw and realness of human bodies and teaches children about what's to come and different bodies and things like that. And I think that is, you know, there's one way of doing that. There's a way of doing that I don't think needs to be full exposure of everything to minors. And I think that it's just such a shave. It's a shave away from indecent exposure. And I actually looked at this law. My sister's training to be a lawyer, and I looked at this law. I was like, Mary, does this mean, because it has like a little A and B system, it has like 2 different points on what indecent exposure is, and apparently it has to be both. And I think the part that they've just narrowly shaved past is the intending to provide some kind of harm or distress to another person or a minor. And I think that this show, I just don't think it needs to be done in such an explicit way. I think we've survived as humans throughout the from the time we were created to this point. Like, we've survived this long without adult humans showing themselves to small children, especially children that are not their own, in the public, and especially on television before the watershed time. If you don't know what watershed is, I'm pretty sure my understanding of it is that it's a time where after this time, that watershed time, which has usually been around 9 p.m, it's where there's more explicit language used, there's maybe a bit more revealing scenes, more intimate scenes that are shown on television and broadcasting stations, and this show is aired before that time as well. So there's just a whole issue of explicitness about this show, which I think is just a bit strange. I'm pretty sure it's something like 1 in 4 people, or 1 in 6, I think it's 1 in 6, have dealt with some kind of sexual assault in their lifetime. And I think that having these children on the show, some of them have probably faced some kind of, I'm not speaking this over them, God forbid, but some of them might have faced some kind of sexual abuse, some kind of sexual assault, and maybe this is actually triggering for them, but because they're going on this show and it's TV, it's very shiny, and I'm not sure what kind of therapy or like counselling they did before this show for the children, but I just think it's quite an irresponsible program. But that's just my opinion of it. I wouldn't watch it just because I would actually feel quite disturbed watching adults reveal themselves to children, and I'm not sure how. I'm still processing what I think of the adults that are choosing to reveal themselves to children. I think it's quite jarring, and I would never do it, God forbid. God forbid. But I just think it's quite strange, and I'm not too keen on the program. I have complained to Ofcom, and you can complain to Ofcom if you haven't already. It's received around 1,000 complaints since the show aired, and since people got wind of what the program was going to be. And I think people are in their right to, you know, complain about the show and to bring up any qualms or, you know, concerns they have about it. I definitely don't feel comfortable. I probably wouldn't let my children watch it. But I think there's that intent for education. I think that is the thing that I'm trying to, you know, cherry pick from this program, is the intent for education. And I think education is always good when it's teaching children about the rawness and realness of life. But I think there's boundaries to that, and I think there's there's certain boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. I think that fully exposing yourself as an adult to a child, in my mind, is just wrong. But that's just me. So yeah, that's that program, a new program on television in the UK called Naked Education. And it's got a lot of kick up about it. A lot of YouTubers are even catching wind of it right now and talking about it. And yeah, I've been wanting to talk about this for quite some time, since it actually, before it aired even on television. But yeah, I wanted to make sure that I slotted it into the right in culture episode. And this episode is actually quite focused on the treatment of children, unfortunately, and a lot of them in not so great ways. So yeah, if any of that, I should probably put some kind of warning somewhere just talking about these kind of things, even though I'm not using such explicit language, but just in case you don't want to watch. The next thing that I wanted to touch on was genome editing, okay? So by degree, I'm trained as a biomedical scientist, not officially by the board or anything like that, but just by degree. That was my degree, and I did molecular biotechnology. So I always love to keep up with the science and what's going on, the latest developments, things like that. And we've got some developments within genome editing with a system called CRISPR. And CRISPR is basically a genome editing technique that is quite new actually, and it's been developed to be able to target certain sequences within the genome to be able to actually change it and potentially cure some diseases, basically, in the most simplest terms. So things where it's easily targeted within the genome sequence, you can actually target it and change it. So something that's faulty, you could make it the healthy version of that gene. So that's what we're seeing, and there's a whole controversy about designer babies and that kind of thing. There's already CRISPR babies, like designer babies out there to some degree. The guy who actually first made designer babies is in jail, so it is actually illegal in the way that this guy did it. There's certain things that you have to go through to be able, certain hoops that you have to jump through to be able to actually do this, to do the editing. There's certain restrictions that you have to be under, certain laws. And this guy, there was a man called, I don't want to butcher his name, I'll try, if I don't put his name on the screen, just listen to me, just butcher it. So it's He Jiankui or something like that. In 2018, it says that, so this is a article, and it says, the designer babies already exist, their creator went to jail. So he was not the creator in terms of having thought of it, but definitely the creator in terms of having done it and it being found out publicly. So in 2018, he announced the birth of 2 babies with edited genomes. So he used CRISPR on these 2 embryos to rewrite their CCR5 genes, which caused a resistance to HIV. So in one way you would say, oh, but this is, isn't this a great advancement? If he's, creating this resistance to something as potent as HIV, which could develop into AIDS, less so these days, but still it has that potential to do that, then isn't this a great thing? But there's also that pushback that it's like, are you playing God? How far is this going to go? Are we going to have designer babies? That kind of thing. So that is just something there's been so many more developments on recently, on people actually, harnessing these kind of technologies to be able to create designer babies and things like that. But actually there's hope that these things could be used to cure certain diseases. For example, sickle cell anemia, which is a big thing, which is in my family as well. It could really be life-changing for a lot of people. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Have you ever been taught about genome editing, about something like CRISPR, different modern technologies that we're using to cure diseases and make alterations to our genome sequence? Let me know if you're scientifically inclined, or even if you're just interested and you're not scientifically inclined. Let me know down below what you think about all of this with designer babies and the whole issue of, genome editing and designer babies becoming a big hot topic as we further our technologies in this area. Let me know. I think my thoughts on it generally is that if we can heal something, I'd love to be a part of it. I think where my thoughts come and kind of stop at is where we're creating like designer babies and, oh, let me change this about them, let me change that about them, let me make sure they have this and make sure they have that. Because then there's that element of I want control over this person, and less so that I actually want to help them to have a better quality of life. And maybe some of those things could be argued for a better quality of life. Oh, they'll be taller, so they'll be more attractive, so that means they'll get more, maybe they'll become a model and they'll have a better, income if they are more muscular so they can get into, you know, a good football team or something like that. You know, everyone could argue different things for, you know, different qualities about a human, but I think generally if it's a disease, something that takes away from the health of the person, I think we should look more into that, because there's nothing more painful than watching someone suffer unnecessarily. But yeah, and I think that that brings into question then, you know, what the ethics about it as well, which is such a big topic, rather than just the ability to do it. We have the technology to some capacity nowadays, but it's just ethically whether it's moral to do it. So yeah, that's that, some genome editing and that whole technological advancement there. The next topic, oh my goodness, people will not stop being problematic. People will not stop being problematic. Why? Read your Bible, be unproblematic, drink your tea, you know? So the next topic that we have is about the Dalai Lama. And he is a Tibetan spiritual leader, and oh my goodness, he's kind of like the Mother Teresa of, you know, one of the Mother Teresas of the world. This, you know, like really praised, exalted person. And he's called His Holiness. People call him His Holiness. I don't mean any disrespect. I really don't mean any disrespect. It's just really sad to see what has happened in the news with this. And, you know, it has kicked up a fuss, thank God. But yeah, there's a lot that's gone on with this that is just quite scary. So there's an incident where the Dalai Lama said that he wanted a child to suck his tongue. It feels weird saying that, just saying that out loud. I'm just like, that's a bit sus. It's a bit sus, just a tiny bit. So he's a spiritual leader in Tibet, and he's since apologized to the boy and his family for the hurt his words may have caused. So this happened at the Dalai Lama's temple in a place, I really don't want to butcher the name, but it happened on the 28th of February, so it's actually happened quite some time ago, but it's since come out. And it's talking about, so yeah, after reading a bit more of this article that I'm in, I'm just stuck in permanent it really is a lot. I was talking to my sister actually the other day about what kind of law she wants to go into, and we're talking about how, you know, there's certain people that deal with really soul-grating things on a day-to-day basis, like in criminal law, that kind of thing, and they just hear the details. They don't actually go through it, they don't witness it, but they have to hear these details, and I'm just like, oh my goodness, my heart for these people that work in these areas of just such explicit knowledge being shared with you every single day, or every so often, is just, it's a lot. It's quite taxing, and just reading about this really makes my soul just like really sad. But yeah, this happened at the Dalai Lama's temple. There was 120 students that had gathered as some kind of post, you know, meeting after them completing a program. It was part of a philanthropic arm of a real estate company, the M3M group. So there was 120 students, they'd all met him and, you know, had these interactions. But this particular boy, there was a lot of affection shown, hugging and, you know, a kiss on the cheek and that kind of thing. And it was just, yeah, and then the tongue sucky request happened, and it's just, yeah, it's a bit strange, but that's what happened with that. And apparently sticking out a tongue can be a form of greeting in Tibet, but it says can be, and I think the whole world can kind of look at that, and that's why it's in the news, because the whole world is kind of looking at it being like, it's a bit sus. There was also a comment from 2019 at the bottom of this article. It says that there was another apology from the Dalai Lama's office after the spiritual leader told the BBC in an interview that any future female Dalai Lama should be attractive. Yeah, I'll just leave that there. I think that, yeah, it just shows the inadequacy of as humans in our morality, thinking that we know, you know, what is right, we know we think within ourselves our standard of good is amazing, and it's really not. It's quite flawed. So to see someone who's actually called His Holiness behave this way and have these kind of comments, it's like, it's not even to be like, oh, he's just a bad person now. It's just like, we need Jesus. He needs Jesus. Like, you know, we can't exalt ourselves, because those who are exalted will be abased, and those who are abased will be exalted. And Jesus was ultimately abased. He was ultimately brought low, and he was exalted so high, and he is the highest name in all of the universe. He's the highest name under heaven. So I know that, you know, we all need Jesus, that the Dalai Lama needs Jesus, and this is just, yeah, a really unfortunate an unfortunate display of his falling short. But yeah, we do all need Jesus, and this is just another person that does need Jesus. And I just pray that this boy doesn't have any kind of, you know, trauma from this, or any kind of, you know, distrust in adults now because of this. Because I'm sure the boy definitely sent some warning signals and was like, I don't know if that's right to do that. So, yeah, just very sad, just very unfortunate. And yeah, let's exalt Jesus instead of exalting people here on earth. And that's where we can start to go right. The next thing was about the Labour Party in the UK. We've got a bit of politics going on. Okay, so the next thing we've got is about the Labour Party leader called Keir Starmer, and he actually put out this viral post, and I thought it was crazy. I was like, oh Lord, like, what is this? Like, is this some kind of backwards campaign? Apparently it is put out by the opposition. So there's the Conservatives and there's the Labour Party in the UK that are the most predominant political parties, and Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, put out a ad against Rishi Sunak, who's the leader of the Conservative Party, saying, do you think adults convicted of sexually assaulting children should go to prison? Rishi Sunak doesn't. Under the Tories, 4,500 adults convicted of sexually assaulting children under 16 served no prison time. Labour will lock up dangerous child abusers. And this was just crazy. It hit the news because obviously Rishi Sunak is smiling in the photo. It seems like some kind of political, you know, outpouring of their, you know, their data. There's the stuff that they've done in party and in their time in office, and it's just like, ooh, that looks bad. And then come to find out, obviously Labour did it, and Keir Starmer actually stands by every single word that was written in that. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like, you cannot pin this all, first of all, on Rishi. I know he is the head of the party, but that doesn't reflect his individual personal, you know, he's not the judge in the court. He's not the person that is judging every case. And I think that it's just really irresponsible and ignorant to put something like that out. I'm not really politically inclined as much. I think I definitely have my personal beliefs, but I'm not affiliated to a party, so I'm definitely looking at this like side eye, like, what is going on here? This is, some people were like, is this gutter politics, you know? And I think it definitely is. Like, just looking at this as objectively as I can, I think it's gutter politics to put that out there in such an explicit way, to say that Rishi Sunak is, you know, not even just being complacent, but also that he's for this, he doesn't think that they should be imprisoned, is crazy. I think it's actually crazy, especially going after the leader of a whole nation. I think we should try and support the leaders of our nation, regardless of, you know, their political affiliation, as best we can. And obviously if you don't agree, that's perfectly fine. Not saying people like, you know, Hitler-esque people, but in terms of our general democratic government. And yeah, it's just quite crazy, that storyline. And then recently we've had Dominic Raab, who was the vice MP, deputy MP even, who's resigned. There was a whole like bullying inquiry that was going on, and he resigned because of that during that process. And Rishi Sunak actually supported him in, you know, going against this bullying probe. So yeah, that is what has happened. So the deputy PM has resigned, yeah, after this bullying report and all the things that have been contained in it. So yeah, there's quite a lot of shifts going on in government. There has been for the past few years. I don't know when we'll actually settle. I'm interested for anybody that's in politics or studying politics, anything like that. Is there some kind of name for what is going on in politics right now, or is this quite a typical thing? I've studied politics a little bit in terms of history. I studied history all through school and then, you know, college and things like that, but I never actually studied politics. So it'd be interesting to see if there's something called like a COVID shift or something like that with politics, because there's been so much instability in the government in the past few years, from having, I think it was 3 prime ministers in 3 months or something like that. We've had a lot going on, especially since COVID. So yeah, it's just been quite unstable, I would say, and it's hard to keep up with what the government is doing and to actually get into politics, as I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get more informed in what's going on in the wider world outside of my little brain. So yeah, that is what is going on from what I know, from what I've been reading in the news recently. And the last topic that I wanted to touch on was a really, really unfortunate situation with a child. And thank God, with these kind of things, I always have to like speed to the end of the article because my heart can't take it. Like, I really don't, like, especially in like 2020, that kind of thing. I don't know how many of you saw the video that I made, or the videos that I made with about BLM and all of that kind of thing. It was interesting. But it weighs so heavy that I have to just go to the end and see if the person's okay, or if they've passed or something like that, or if it was racially motivated. There was a child in America called Yarl, and he was going about his business trying to pick up his younger brothers, and yeah, he was trying to pick up his younger brothers, and he got shot on the doorstep of a man who owned the house. So he knocked on the wrong door, and it was just really awful. So he's going to pick up his brothers, knocks on the door, hears some rustling. Nothing was said once the door was opened, apart from what the man says was, yeah, so this little boy was 16 years old. He's 16 years old, and he knocked on this door. Man opens the door after some rustling, and then he's heard to be said something like, "Don't come back around here," and then fired his weapon. He was shot once in the head and once in the arm, and he went to pick up his twin brothers and went to the wrong street. I've been to the wrong street before, especially recently. I remember recently it happening, and I got the wrong street, and I went to the wrong, I got to the right door number, but then the wrong street. And this is exactly what happened to this boy. He went to 115th Street instead of 115th Terrace and rang the bell twice, and he was shot, and he went to 3 nearby homes before someone helped him. And it was just like, it's just terrifying, and it happened in Missouri. But this man has been prosecuted, or has actually been, charged or something like that. He's been, taken in. He's called Mr. Lester. I'm not sure what his full name is. Let me have a gander so we can see. A man called Andrew Lester, who's 84. So he's an old guy as well. He's been around long enough to know better. And he was a white man, and the little boy was a black boy. So apparently there's some kind of, it's not just like a slap a sticker on it as a racial thing, but apparently there was a racial motivation behind it. And I just think that it's just so sad. Like, I don't think everything is a race issue when two people are of different ethnicities, but I think just in cases where it actually is, it's terrifying, because it's like, how can you actually judge somebody by just the shade of skin that they're born into? Like, they cannot change that. Like, obviously they can artificially, with bleach and all that kind of thing, but like, they can't change how they were born. They didn't decide that, and I would still decide to be black anyway, but it's just, they can't decide that. And it's just really sad how some people feel like they have some kind of superiority over others to be able to degrade them and mistreat them in such a way that demeans their value as a human. Like, you don't even see them as human in some cases. It's just really upsetting, and especially to children as well. Like, I just leave them out of it. What did they ever do to you? But yeah, that is the last thing I wanted to touch on. Really sorry that this episode is a bit more of a depressing one, from the channel for naked education, which is a bit iffy, to the, you know, genome editing. I think that's a bit of a neutral one. You can take it whichever way you want, you know. The Dalai Lama, definitely a bit controversial. Like, I don't know if you can justify his Tibetan greeting of tongue sucking, but yeah. And then the whole Labour Party with the whole, you know, is it gutter politics, is it not, with Dominic Raab resigning, you know, the Deputy Prime Minister, and then ultimately finishing off with Ralph Yarl, who was shot on a doorstep trying to pick up his twin younger brothers. Just really sad stuff. Hopefully in the future I can talk about some really amazing, bright stuff that really encourages you guys. But that is the episode for today. I really hope you enjoyed it, and not enjoyed as in like kiki haha, but just in terms of learning and, you know, all of that kind of thing. It's always you know, it's good to keep up with what's going on in the world. I think there was a time when I didn't keep up with whatever was going on in the world. Maybe it was due to me just being younger and not really worrying too much about the world around me. But I think I've got to the point where I'm like, I want to have a healthy knowledge about what's going on around me. I want to be informed. And it's not that I want to be inundated, you know, every single second with what's going on in the news and what's going on my phone. I would actually prefer not to be, but just to be able to have that general awareness that I'm like, you know what, yeah, I'm informed, I know what's going on, and I'm not consumed by it. I think that's what I really want to bring to you guys, and really just, you know, bring that element of encouragement to it as well, just so that you guys can really access the news, access what's going on in culture, without it being just like clickbait and, you know, in your face and, you know, shock value and all of this kind of thing. Just really finding out what's going on in culture, what's going on around us, and how it's really shaping us as humans, because whatever we listen to, whatever we're, you know, taking in, it's affecting us, you know, it's pushing us forward, it's pushing us into different directions, into different avenues of life. And I think it's really interesting, the different topics that I've touched on today, the way that it will shape culture. For example, the Channel 4 programme, Naked Education, I think there is a generation that is being raised now with a lot more triggers, but with a lot more curiosity as well. I think there's certain things that this generation is not willing to receive the answer of, you'll find out when you're older, or this is for the adults. They want to know, and they will find out, from having internet access to shows like this that they'll be able to easily access. I think there's definitely a generation being raised up, or, you know, coming up, that really has an inquisitive mind, and I think that we should be able to know how to deal with that better, instead of just shutting it down. So yeah, I'm really interested to talk about more in depth about these topics, especially something like the genome editing. That's going to continue over the generations to come, and hopefully I'll be able to continue to touch on that, and different scientific and technological advancements that are going on. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought of today's episode, the topics that I touched on, and just your thoughts and opinions in general. Maybe some news about where you're from, something that's going on locally, or just even in your country. Fill us in, encourage us down below. Maybe something good has happened, put some sunshine in the comments down below, and yeah, just put a smile on someone else's face. So yeah, that is my episode for today of In Culture, and yeah, I'll catch you in my next one, hopefully very soon. Leave a like, comment down below, and also subscribe if you haven't already. If you'd like to become a channel member and become a Bible buddy today, please be sure to click the link down below, or also click the join button as well, and I'll catch you in my next one. Stay blessed, and bye.